with the arms? Did anybody practice a little bit, participated? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I practice. This is Mashal.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. The very first day we did, yeah.
Okay, so you know, maybe at the end, so if you want me to check, maybe at the end you can stay with me and I can kind of just have a look what's happening with you, right? Particularly anyone that has a question or a particular thing like for the whole class that we can share or no? I know you guys are, this is happening like every class, anytime, even face to face. When we ask people anything you would like me to address, everybody's perfect. Okay, so yeah.
It's a struggle, but you know, it's just going to take practice.
That's the thing. Yes, exactly. So you just make sure. I mean, you know, my mom was even practicing. I came for the dinner the other day. She goes, you know, the thing that you do with them. And of course, she does not even dance. So the easiest thing will be, like, even when you have very little time or you're talking to someone that they only see your face, just have your fingers and just get used to moving your hands in a particular way, right? Because that's the thing. It's not a normal thing. We don't use the hands in that way. So if you really want to develop that movement, you will just have to keep on doing that. You know, like when I started to dance, I did not have very nice feet. Like I've never had a ballet training. So, but I was determined to have them pointed and nice. So when I was going to school, I was still in high school. That's it. One of these days I will tell you my story because it's kind of interesting. But I was still in high school when I was competing professionally, and I would go to school and I would sit right on your chair, but with my foot pressing down to make sure I keep on developing that angle of my foot, right? So if you're committed, if you really want to get that, just make sure, you know, you keep on rolling. You can do it simpler with your wrist first, and then keep on doing the finger. At some point or in the beginning, to do this, you will feel a little bit discomfort because this part it's tight, you know. So when we were doing this and then coming back, right? Could you see? You're probably gonna feel like this is as comfortable as you can get, but I really would like you to open as much as you can. Right? And of course, like with anything with the practice, as you know, the more you do, the wider your range of motion is going to be. One thing to keep in mind as well, when I was doing this with my mom, it's easy to maneuver the elbow. So make sure that, could you see, I try to keep the elbow in the same spot. So you keep on moving the wrist more than everything all together. That's a very common mistake, that we end up doing what you're supposed to plus something else. Right? So when you're practicing this or anything else, even, you know, when we go back to dancing with our partners or teachers, one of the common things that I would like you to watch out for, you do oftentimes the thing that we want you to do, but you also adding other things. And it's the other things that get you in trouble, right? So could you see how occasionally we might maneuver the elbow, right? But occasionally I might just ask you to maneuver the wrist. Right? And could you see now, you're maneuvering the wrist, you're maneuvering the fingers plus the wrist, and then look at this, still keeping your elbow, now maneuver the fingers, maneuver the wrist, and then open your lower arm. But could you see nothing changes within the elbow? Unfortunately, lots of time when we end up doing this, right, when we end up doing the wrist, we end up drooping that. And now remember how I call this the begging position. You're begging us to give you mark. When you beg, we don't give. And you know what? I need to spotlight myself because I could see that we are we're flipping between the girls. So let me just do this. Okay, spotlight video. So now everybody just sees me. And I see all of you, but you guys just seeing me. Okay.
So how did you train your feet? You put your toes under your feet?
Right. So, you know, I wanted to be able to point. So what I would do, I would take my foot and I would just keep on pressing. You know, I mean, we're from Eastern Europe. It's a mind over matter, right? No matter if it's painful or not painful, you just keep on bending the foot until it gives in.
And your shoes, what kind were they?
So, you know, I would do it with any shoe. Like in California, you have, you know, I would be wearing any shoe. I would be sitting, eating the table, you know, eating
just
the
doing
table.
It all the time, like it's like doing
dinner, and I would be keep on doing this, right? So to some degree, and you know, all of you know this, the faster you want to get the result, the more repetition you have to do, right? There are no shortcuts. So to some degree, for those of you that want great results, you almost have to be obsessed with doing particular things in order to get the result. And kind of like Michelle was saying to me before, oh, but you know what? The arm is drooping. It will, until one day you can maintain it, until one day you don't have to think of the elbow because you've practiced enough. Yeah. Okay. So now, yes, Jackie?
So one of the things I struggled with in practicing is initially when you started the class, you talked about the palms down and
yes.
But when we were doing more of the paso doble moves, sometimes it seemed like we could do either. And where I was getting mixed up was, do I start here? Do I start here? Bring things in and out. Is there any rules relative to how the palms are?
Okay, so 90% of the time, okay, very good question. 90% of the time, kind of like what we started, because you joined us on Monday, on Saturday, we were talking that the rule is when the hands are close to you, they're usually in. When they're out, they're usually down. So normally when you're doing all of this, whoa. I always let my legs fall asleep when I talk to you guys, or to you ladies. So usually when I'm here, I keep them like this, and then I flip them and I push them out. So usually the flipping will happen in front of you when you're close, right? And then you push it. So even when you're doing your paso doble line, could you see, like, I would like you to have a sensation that by the time your arms are out of your space, personal space, it's like you're pushing something outside. You're pushing the bank, you're pushing the door. Imagine that you are like in a big pillowcase and you are stretching it outside. It's easier to stretch when you have your hands that way than when you have your hands this way, right? Of course you can. I'm not saying that that's the only choice, because you see our pros a lot of time doing this, right? But that's a presentation, right? Oftentimes now, if you're not cautious, we talk about the droopy arm, we end up doing this. So could you see now it has no tone, versus when I do that, could you see, like, you, in order to push, you have to create resistance. When you're creating resistance, your whole body has more strength, right? So it's easier to look powerful when your arms are this way than that way. This, could you see how it almost looks like my elbows are projecting the energy in, versus my elbows are projecting the energy outside. And then you can of course do any, you could actually even do this. From here, there, and then at the end, if you would like to, just flip the palms. Right? So instead of starting here, I would go this way and then flip it if you would like to. Right? So could you see you're already creating a really strong, deliberate movement and position of your body, and then you expand it to people. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah? Awesome. And then of course from here, could you see it's easier to bring your arms this way when your elbows are coming towards you. Let's actually try this. Put your hands like this. Now do not flip your palms, just bring your hands. It's awkward. That's when we get the little funky dives in our hands. So when you're here, you flip your hands this way. Could you see how it's easy to connect them? It's easy to collect and still look very nice and put together. Right? So a lot of these things that I'm sharing with you ladies is to make sure that you understand the principles, right? The efficiency of it. It's almost like I'm showing you how to drive your vehicle first, and then individually for a particular look, we can make an exception. But this hands in front of you, palms down outside should apply to, I would say, 90% of your moves. And then the extra 10, we make it individually, either for you or your performance or a particular look that we're aiming for. Yeah. Let me just check very quickly because I have some comments. Okay. Sharon, very good point. Make sure that everybody's muted, and only when you talk, you unmute yourself. So you can hear me very clearly. Yes, Yuri said the same thing. Yes, yes, yes. Exactly, because there's too many background noises. Okay, great. So when you want to speak, unmute, but then when I speak, just try to mute yourself, because otherwise we have a lot of noise. Somehow I don't see it, maybe because I'm spotlighted, so I don't hear the noise, but you guys probably hear each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you can control us to unmute it when you want to say anything so we don't even sound. And then when you're ready to ask us question, you unmute us together.
Okay, so perfect. That's a great idea. So I am in control of muting and unmuting. All
exactly.
Right. That's okay, that's it. Perfect. So now, hips. Are you ready to move your butt? Okay, good. You know what? I will put you on the bottom so I could see a little bit what's happening. Like this. There we go. All right, so within the hips, I would like you to think of two different ways. Your pelvis and hip flexors, right? And now you will see how once you make the distinction, it will make your life and my life is much easier to understand when it's a correct movement. So when we talk about the stability and movement through space, we're going to be referring to your hips as pelvis, as your big bone, and I'm going to be asking you to keep on moving your whole pelvis in a particular direction. When we're talking about flexibility or hip action, we're going to be talking about the hip flexors, right? So when we talk about the hip flexors, I want you to be aware that it's not here. It's where the bone of the leg goes into the pelvis. So we're talking about the socket, which is here, right? So when we're moving, this is the part that we're going to be referring to, right? So if you can just put your feet apart and bend one leg versus the other, right? And make sure you don't make it too wide, just a little bit. Just bend one leg and the other. And what's going to happen, you should see that there is a hip action, that it's up and down, right? And then I'm going to show you, we're going to add a little bit rotation, right? Once your feet are slightly turned out, when you are actually going from foot to foot, that's exactly what's going to happen, right? So that's caused very much by bending and straightening your knee. Now, if you are transferring the weight from foot to foot, I want you to make sure that you always take your pelvis onto the leg that you are standing on, right? So that's what gets a little bit confusing, because oftentimes we do one action following by another one, right? And I will show you first, and then we're going to do it together. So this, right? Could you see that's going to happen, let's say, on the end of your movement, on the beginning, right? So you have a hip action, and then you're going to make a step. When you make a step, you're no longer going to think of the hip action because you've just done it. You're going to now think of moving your pelvis. Then you're going to have a hip action. Then you're going to move your pelvis, right? So one follow immediately the other. Oftentimes we get stuck thinking of just one or the other, meaning moving the hip flexors all the time. And could you see how now I'm just wobbling from spot to spot, right? Could you see how that goes against the very first section that we have, alignment? Could you see now my leg and my hip, the top of my leg goes one way and the body goes the other way, because I allowed my pelvis to swing, right? And could you see, I would like you to feel that you're just moving it as a one block. So could you just move from foot to foot, almost like hold your pelvis and think like it's a box that you're moving from side to side. Now, what's nice about it, if you're moving it in that way, your ribcage should go with you in the same direction, right? So could you see like everything is nice and aligned, and now you have a nice square body, right? Could you see how if I would draw a straight line, the straight line here, down and here, just like my t-shirt, right? And then you are going from one position to another. That for your alignment, for your stability, for your for the sense of balance, right? Now look at this, that's a misalignment. And lots of time, unfortunately, people think that's a hip movement. Yes, that's some sort of hip movement, but could you see that hip movement, if I do this, Could you see how now it's a funny position? And also one of the things what I would like you to think of, if you see me this way, don't you think I'm not going anywhere, right? Could you see my head is not going, just my butt. I call this a butt wiggle, right? So now if I'm looking from front, that's one thing, but if I'm behind and I'm just doing this, right? Could you see I'm really not going anywhere. Now I could even do this, because some of you might say, well, but I can stand on one leg. So can I. Boom and boom, right? Could you see how I'm transferring my weight? So could you tell me what's wrong with that? Why wouldn't I like that movement? I know, good question, huh? So look at just my shoulders. I'm going to do this one more time because I would like you to be aware what it is that we're looking at when we're judging you, right? What's important. Look at just from my rib cage, from the bottom of my rib cage up, right? So look at this. If I do this movement and you're looking from here to here, like just imagine, don't imagine, I show it to you. If I do this, right? And you just have to believe me, I'm not standing still. And I do this. Would you believe that I'm moving? No, it's really difficult, right? But look, if I take this away, that's exactly what's happening. So now, when we're judging you, and in your early rounds, we mainly see your upper body because there is a lot of people. Everybody's trying to get distracting us from looking at you, but looking at them. Could you see how if you're not transferring your ribcage with your pelvis, from far, you look like you are standing still. Even though you think and you feel you're moving. Because could you see for me, I still feel, of course I'm moving, right? I'm picking up my leg, I'm moving my hips. So to me as a doer, as a dancer, I feel I'm moving a lot. But could you see to the outside world, if we're looking from the waist up, it looks like it's either no movement or very little movement through space. Yes, so that's why it's important that when you're transferring your weight, your rib cage have to go where your hip is. And then again, where your hip is. So if you go from foot to foot, make it a little bit bigger for yourself at the moment, right? So you can't lean. If you make it pretty big step and collect your leg, the other leg. Make a step, collect your leg. Make a step, collect your leg. And then go back and step. Go back and step. Go back and step, right? However space you have. Go forward and step. Go forward and step. Forward step. Forward step. Just side, right? And make sure that that square of your shoulders and your hips go together. Correct. Now, just give me the butt wiggle, just to feel the difference within your body, right? Even if you pick up the leg, could you see how it's a very different feeling, right? Another thing when that happens, could you see one side is droopy? Remember how when we did the arms, and I say keep it up. If you keep the arm up, right? So actually, if we combine this, step side, bring the leg and pick up the arm. Could you see if you pick up the arm high, you won't be able to droop. Or it's amazing how you guys can prove me wrong. Every time I tell to my clients, it's not going to happen. Of course, they always find a way of doing it. It's more difficult to droop. Let's put it that way. And here, and here, and here, and here. So go from side to side, to side, to side. Correct. And could you see now, the whole body moves as a one piece. And now, do not be afraid, because I was afraid when my teacher would say to me a long time ago, move as a one piece. Immediately in my head, I thought, I don't want to be stiff. Moving as a one piece, that's going to look like I'm not a dancer. I'm just stiff going, from foot to foot. When it comes to moving, transferring your weight, that's the right thing to do. in between, I will show you how to have an activity in between. So before you move from one foot to the other, we're gonna have a hip activity and therefore a body activity. But once you're ready to go, I need you to move your whole body, all your pieces, your hips, your rib cage, your shoulders, your head from one side to the other. That's what looks so dynamic through space when you're dancing. That's when it looks like you're covering distance, even if your steps are small. If you don't, again, it looks like you're not doing anything, right? So let's do this one more time. Yes, hand and hand, right? Go forward, boom, and through. Step, 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 and step, and forward, and back, and forward, and back. Right? Now, your rib cage, your shoulders, and your hips should be moving, not just onto the leg, but it should be moving in the same rotation. Now, your rotation is very much determined by the turnout of the foot, right? So let me see if I can point my camera a little bit lower and you can see my feet. I will move your bar a little bit higher so I could see. Okay, so yeah, you should be able to see my feet. Got it. So now, could you see if my foot is turned out? I would like you to feel that your hip flexor is aiming for the middle of the foot that you are standing, right? So now, could you see my other foot is turned out as well? When I'm going to transfer my weight, I'm going to have my left hip flexor going towards my left foot, right? So therefore, look at the difference. I'm not doing this. I'm actually adding the little rotation. The rotation is determined by the turnout of your foot. So now, give me feet completely square. Do not turn out. Transfer your weight and transfer your weight. And try, but very gently because it's not good for you. When your feet are pointing at me, try to rotate your body. Would you see how it's difficult because your knee and your hips do not want to go together. Now, turn out that foot and allow the pelvis to go with it. Could you see how it goes so much faster, so much farther? And again, with an ease, right? It feels natural. So now, the same thing when you're transferring weight here. Make sure your hip flexor finds your foot. So we go from foot to foot. And could you see your shoulders? Again, this is the top of your butt, this is the bottom. So everything together, 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 together. So now, if we do those little movements forward and back, if you have, and you should, have your foot turned out, could you see I'm stepping forward with my foot turned out. When I'm picking my other one, there is that rotation. I'm stepping forward with my foot turned out, and because it turned out, I have a rotation. Going back, foot turned out, rotate. Going back, foot turned out, rotate. And rotate. And rotate. If my feet are not turned out, it's going to look like this. And then you're going to feel like you're not dancing. Then you're going to try to put extra things into the movement, right? Because could you see that rotation? If you just do the rotation, could you see it's actually, it looks a lot. But look, the body just go from one angle to the other. But if my foot is flat, a lot of time we try to do all kinds of extra stuff because we don't like to be completely square and not mobile at all. Does that make sense? And I can see that there's a question. Hold on. Okay. Okay, so the question was, we're talking about the feet turned out. How do you get them turned out? Is there a thing you can do? So the way I like to think of the feet to be, or the way I work on your feet turn out, slightly different than ballet. I'm not going to ask you to have a turnout like a ballerina that each leg is going completely different direction. Although if you know how to do that, if you have some ballet experience, good for you, right? The way I like to think of it is this. You open your legs, right? The width of your body, maybe a little bit wider, but not much. And I would like you to feel you're closing your heels. So you're going in versus going out, right? Now, going out, you can think of this as this way as well. I kind of like to bring it in because then I feel it's a big enough turnout, but not so much that I can't move, right? So feet apart, bring your heels in. And then, you know, to practice this, because again, we usually don't walk with such a turnout. Some of us have a little bit more, some of us have a little bit less naturally. So once you have that position, I will back it up so you can see me. Now, try to go forward. Like, do not even think of the any action, just the feet together. Feet turned out and feet turned out. So you're just moving your leg and your foot with that particular alignment. Out and in and out and in. Because oftentimes what's happening, ladies, we have the feet turned down and then we make a step and the foot goes either in or flat, right? So as much as it looks so natural when we are doing it for so long, before it starts being natural to us, you just have to, again, kind of like with those arms, you just have to go foot turned out, foot turned out, foot turned out, foot turned out. So you just keep on, again, developing one piece enough. You're making the blueprint, I call it, the imprint, strong enough that when you're doing other things, you don't have to worry about your feet, right? The feet turned out should be a necessity, you know? One of the things, I don't want to take it away right now from the hip action because we talk about that we're going to do the hip and the rib cage. Maybe next week, we can do a whole session of just doing exercises with the band and, you know, just for your legs and for your feet to develop that awareness, right? And the strength, right? So today, I'm just going to address that they do need to be turned out, but then maybe we can talk about, you know, have a whole completely session of, you know, how to work on those things. Let me see another question. Do you use your toes as you guide to move your feet forward? I'm not so sure. Okay, Michelle, give me that question in person. I hear what you're saying. I'm not so sure I'm understanding the question.
How do you move your foot forward? How do you know it's turned out? Because many times, especially when I do closer, many times I catch my feet wrong.
Okay, okay, so I'm just quickly going to answer that, and then we're going to, maybe on Monday, we do just the foot lesson. Okay, I actually, what I would suggest, I don't think of my toes, I think of my heel. So if those are my feet, right, I just told you to do this, right? So not so much out, but I said heels in. So when I'm making my step, I'm thinking of the heel to be showing. I don't necessarily think of the toe, right? So when I'm here, I brought my heels in. Now when I'm making a step, I want to make sure that my inside of my heel is showing. My inside of the heel is showing. So I'm actually paying attention a little bit more to the heel versus to my toe. The more I think of my toe, the more I've noticed the foot is rolling in, right? And I can address that because then, of course, we have the inside edge, outside edge. And so if once we do the session, so let's plan on Monday because it seems that's going to be important. When you're putting your foot in, your toes shouldn't be inside edge. Your toes actually going to be on the outside edge. So there is, when you're sideways, it's in. When you're pointing, it's not going to be inside edge. But because we're so aware of the inside edge, lots of time we end up being pigeon toe, even though we are trying to do the right thing. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. All right. So continuing with the hip action, right? So assuming we have the feet turned out, right? And now we are going from position to position. Right? Could you see how it has a nice rotation? And then you can add the arm. And remember, that was our spot as well on Saturday when we have a nice expansion and you are holding to your partner. And could you see how everything is nice and aligned? There shouldn't be a hip up, right? That's another thing. Think of your hips, pelvis as a square, as a box, right? Kind of like my t-shirt. That bottom line needs to be parallel towards the ground. anytime you tilt, could you see how everything else is going to be falling off balance? So now, again, for a particular look, I might ask you to do this, but not when you're doing a regular walks forward. Just like when you're walking on the street, you don't walk like this. I guess we could, right? We could look kind of special when we walk. Could you see how pelvis are square? So when you're transferring the weight, even though we have a rotation, could you see how the line have to be parallel towards the ground, right? So almost, I always say people like the butt, the crease, I call this like a smiley butt, gotta be always flat. When you're dancing like this, when the butt is lifted, could you see you're gonna be leaning forward? So you have to make sure this is down, so it's flat, and then you're moving it on the same level. Anything that goes up will cause you to be off balance. Yes, when it comes, when we have a conversation about stability. So even when I go forward, right, we're talking about side, but when I go forward, this is the most common mistake. Could you see how I lifted my butt, tilted my butt? I want my butt to go forward, but with the bottom of my butt in a flat to the ground. When you bring the leg in, again, the bottom of my butt flat to the ground. When I'm moving forward, the bottom of my butt flat to the ground. Anytime you lift, you're going to be falling off balance. Now, the same goes the opposite way. If I am moving it forward, then I'm falling back. So it's almost like the example that oftentimes I give, it's like your coffee mug, right? Your body is the coffee. Your pelvis is the coffee mug. So anytime you move it, tilt it, you will feel like what's in it, which is your spine and your ribcage, will fall off balance. But just like walking with the coffee, right? You're at the airport going to the competition. You have your coffee. As long as the bottom of the mug is parallel towards the ground, you can move it. You can move it fast. You can move it around. You can pick it up. You can do anything you like, as long as you don't tilt. When you tilt, that's how we drink, right? There's a tilt. So anytime your pelvis is tilted, your body gonna respond to it. So you have to make sure that you always find that stability. The easiest way is to have your hands on your thighs. We've done this, I think, in the alignment class, and you push it forward. So you feel tight here, and you feel the butt wraps around, right? So this is strong, and this is strong. My coach used to, so one of these days when we just meet for chatting time, I will tell you my story, but I didn't speak English. And one of my coaches would come in and just smack me in my stomach. Oh my God, I used to hate that man, right? Because I could not understand what he wanted. And he would just come in and whack me on my stomach, right? But then I quickly realized when I was engaged, it did not hurt. When I was loose, it hurt like crazy. So, but without saying anything, he made me aware, be ready, right? So without me smacking you on your stomach, just think when you lift your thighs, this gets engaged. The same sensation is here. The butt is under. So everything now, could you see it's nice and aligned? Your shoulders, your pelvis, it's one on top of the other. So when you pick up the leg with, let's say, your rotation, could you see how it's easy to do that? And you should feel like catch and catch. You can keep on catching your body. Anytime we do this, remember how I said that's like energy leaking out. I need you to feel the energy have to be collected. So even when I ask you to open the arm, could you see this is in, and then you open the arm here. Now look how quickly it changes to the look of too loose. Could you see how now, first of all, in the angle, secondly, everything just flappy. Instead of up, in, collect, and then open the arm, right? So there is, that's what we mean when we say we need you to be toned all the time. When you have the body tone, when the energy within the body goes in, all your moves have a limitation. When you don't have limitation, the body end up doing weird stuff, right? Because there is no tone, yeah? So even when we talk about the pelvis, the same thing has to happen. Now, hip flexors versus a pelvis, right? So again, turnout, because this is, we're just gonna assume you have a turnout all the time for your rhythm and Latin. Now bend one leg, right? And what I would like you to do first, don't pick up your heel, just bend one knee. And you'll see that the energy kind of droops a little bit and there's an up and down feeling, right? Because both feet are flat, and then one leg, by bending it, feels like it's shorter. So the body goes down a little bit, yes? So in order to prevent the droopiness of the body, what I'm gonna ask you to do, I'm gonna go this way so you can see my feet. I'm gonna ask you to pick up the heel of the leg that the knee is bent, right? So could you see, by picking it up, even though your knee is bent, you're maintaining that nice upper body position. When you lower your heel, you will feel this. When you pick up the heel, you can lift. So now, as we're bending your knees, I'm gonna ask you to pick up the heel of the leg that it's bending, right? So we're gonna go pick it up and pick it up and pick it up and pick it up. So you're bending and picking up your heel, right? So nice little exchange, right? If we can keep on doing this. And now, because I asked you to have your turnout, while you're doing this, when, let's say, in my case, I'm bending my right knee, I'm picking my right heel, because the left foot have a turnout, my body rotates to the left. And then I'm going to lower my right heel, pick up my left, and because my right foot has a turnout, my body will rotate. So lower, pick it up, rotate. Lower, pick it up, rotate. Lower, pick it up, rotate. So it's a step followed by the body action. Step followed by the body action. And could you see how now, what I mean when we say body action? Body action, it's the hip, then the rib cage, and the shoulder response, right? Because look at this. That's again, would look like I'm doing nothing from far. If I only do the hips. Could you see how now, if you look from the waist up, you could see that I'm doing something, but it's very little. Versus if I move my rib cage together with my pelvis, just like what we did when we were just moving here, right? Could you see how, even though my feet are closed, right? Could you see how that's a big movement compared to this movement, right? That's again, that's your body wiggle. This is showing me you're on one leg and then showing me you're on the other one. You're on one leg and then you're on the other one, right? So even though you are not going through space, it looks like you're occupying more space versus being stationary, you know, almost like on a little stairmaster, that nothing is moving here and only the legs and butt, right? As a dancer, I need everything to be going together. Now, of course, you can ask me, well, but my teacher told me not to move my upper body, or will I be pulling him? Very valid question. Remember what we did when we're talking about the arms. So if I rotate and I move my pelvis and I move my ribcage and I move my shoulder, now you will have to really open that space that we did the first time, the first day. Open that space to be connected to my guy. If you don't, you will do this. He will then complain that you are pulling him and he will tell you don't move your upper body. But then you are back to being square, right? So now could you see how all these pieces kind of work together? I want a lot of movement, a lot of action, a lot of rotation, and a lot of stretch, right? So there is, in the beginning, a little bit of a discomfort because you should feel, right, that it's not always so easy to do. And then when you switch on the other side, again, you're going to be holding to your guy and you're going to be moving away, right? So we go and switch and switch and switch and switch. So that would be a really good exercise, right? Just, again, that could be a nice warm-up. Even once we go back to, you know, being at the studio, how would you warm up? What are the body parts that you want to, you know, connect and activate? If you put your arm here, almost like imagine you're holding on to the wall and then hold the other wall and hold the wall and give yourself a challenge. How far could you go away from it without pulling it? So what would be nice to do, again, in the room, I don't have anything, but let's say, okay, my piano even. I know it might be a little bit far. Oh no, you can see. You're holding on to the piano, right? And you know that the piano, it could be your doorknob, it could be a table, a countertop in the kitchen. Get close to it, right? Or just enough. Now, when you're stretching away from it, hold on to the piano. Towards it and away. And towards it and away. And you'll be amazed how, because it's that object, because it's an object, not the person, you will never try to move the piano because you know it won't go, right? But when we're dancing with a human being, somehow the body immediately senses it and registers, oh, they can adjust versus me. We end up maneuvering here versus when it's an object or, you know, just, it's a little bit easier when you're holding. You can touch the wall, right? You can actually, like if I imagine my tripod, let's say, that would be my wall, right? If I just touch the wall, you can do it when you're touching, right? In the beginning, it's easier when you're holding on because you will feel really crazy pulling it towards yourself, right? If it's something that as light like this, you will feel that it comes towards you. If it's something like my piano or the doorknob or a big countertop, it won't budge, right? So you will have to quickly go, wow, I need to go a little bit more. I need to keep on opening that space. So even though you're rotating the body one way, your arm have to be opening the other way. That's why, remember how we talk elbows. If you think of picking up the elbows, it's easier to open that space. When your elbows are in, you will have a really hard time opening. You will feel like it's stuck, right? Could you see how now it becomes like, almost like I call this a bulging shoulder? Versus look how quickly you can eliminate. Just open the elbow. Like, or open, lift the elbow. And could you see how now you have a space? When I bring my elbow in, you will feel discomfort and usually it goes up, right? So that would be a nice point of reference on one side and on the other, on one. Now, how you can help yourself as well, the free arm, just pull it across the body. It will give you a little bit more sense of rotating, right? So one is pulling you, one is stretching, and around and around. How does that work? I'm not so sure. I just know that it does. It's almost like, you know, when you're going to a personal trainer for exercising, like push-ups or pull-ups, right? And they tell you to do something, and then the minute they touch, or this muscle or this, somehow your body has much more point of reference. So by touching your stomach and almost like creating a path which way you're going to rotate, you'll be amazed how much farther your body can go, right? It gives you a little bit more awareness, because in the beginning, we do not know what's far enough, right? We do not, it's hard to sense the body. With the arms going through, it's easier to relate to it. Another way of actually checking your progress, what I would recommend, especially right now, you know, we're almost sleeping with the camera, right? With the Zoom, with all kinds of technology with us. Videotape yourself, right? Take a little video, do maybe 2-3 times, see how far you've gotten, and then try to push it a little bit farther. So you're not only busy doing stuff, but you're busy measuring, am I going farther, right? Because sometimes we end up doing the same thing, and then you go, well, I look the same way. If you have not increased it, it's almost like if you go running, you do maybe half a mile one day, and then, you know, 3/4 of the mile the next day. And then at the end of the week, you want to have a whole mile, right? So you keep on measuring your progress, especially right now when the teacher is not able to tell you because you don't see him, right? So that would be a nice way of managing your own thing. And actually, hold on, because there is a question, and then I will continue. It's contracting your lat dorsal back muscle to pull your scapula toward the spine to open the arm and keeping your elbow up. Okay, can you say that out loud? I think I understand what you're saying, but just to kind of...
It touches on what you were explaining last time in one of our arm courses when you were showing your back. Like when you're doing this, you know, you're contracting that.
Correct. Yes.
But then keeping your elbow like from bending, because if you just do that, you can still do this.
Oh, totally.
Keep your elbow like that allows you to do that, but keeping it open.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Like
Absolutely.
Like from a muscle perspective.
Correct. So you just pull again. So, you know, the thing that we talked, let me just close the chat. The things that we talked about, connecting to the spine, connecting into the middle of the body, that's a must all the time, right? As much as we often, you know, we talk about it in relationship to different subjects. One of the things that I really want all of you to keep in mind, the body have to have certain amount of tone before you do anything else. Kind of like if I ask you, okay, now we're going to be all racing, right? You cannot be relaxed. You have to be toned. You have to be ready. If you're waiting for me to go 1, 2, 3, go, right? Before I say go, I need your whole body to have a particular amount of tone. And then as you start running, as you start dancing, that tone will increase. So just like Jessica was saying, from here, no, before you go anyway, before you start moving your hips, before you start moving your arms, before you will work on your feet, I need your arms to be connected to you. Remember how we did that? So now, no matter what it is that I do, I'm maintaining that. I'm never letting that go. The body as a competitor, as a performer, can never be that loose. There is no such a thing, I'm just loose. I am loose when I wake up in the morning and I just want to have fun, and you know, you're just sending the energy, just waking the body. But when you want to be impressive, there is going to be a particular tone. Now, there is a difference between tone and being stiff, right? So remember how when we're walking on the arms, I said just catch. Don't make it really heavy, right? But just feel, I'm actually almost, how can I say this? Okay, I will show you with the bend what I mean. Right? So when I have my bend over here, you don't, let me see so you can see my face as well. You don't have to pull it really strongly to you. You just have to feel it's caught, right? So you feel it's engaged, but it's not so tight you can't move. Because sometimes we go from one extreme to the other, from being too loose to being too tight, almost like, right, my bend. You could see that it has strength, but it's still flexible. If you get the bend that it's too tight, you won't be able to move. So could you see my movement? It's still alive and flexible. It's not so tight that my muscles are shaking. So when we're doing here, my arm is still connected to my lats, and then I rotate. Now, this is too loose, and this is too tight. When it's too tight, you will feel you can't move. So that's how you will distinguish the difference between what's too tight versus what's engaged. When you're engaged, your whole body should move very quickly. Like it should be able to respond right away. When you're too tight, you have a hard time moving. You feel like almost like the chest is too heavy. And no one have to tell you this. When I tighten my body too much, could you see like even my veins right now? Like, you know, it's a veiny situation. Versus when I tone my body, this is still relaxed. I feel that I'm engaged. I can operate quickly. Everything responds quickly, but I'm not suffocating myself. And that's something that each of you will have to develop individually, because for every person, there is a different amount of tone based on your body build, but based on your personality, your experience, you know, how engaging you are with, how masculine you are with the movement. Yeah. Okay. So now continue with your hips. Let me just see what's the time. Okay. So now as we're doing, so even right now, when we're doing this, could you see, even when I'm transferring, don't make it loose. You're going to go from one stretch position to another stretch position and rotate, and rotate, and rotate, and rotate. Yes? So now, if we combine that, right, your body action, which is just that happens on the end. Your weight transfer happens on the number, right? It's on the step. So the steps are usually on the number. You're 1, 2, 3, 4. The ends prior to the step is the body action. The body action is to prep you for your step, right? So if we just go and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, we will do this. And make a step to the side. Sorry, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Yeah, let's try one more time. I'll go a little bit further because I feel like if I don't, then you're just looking at my boobs once I get close to you. Right? So we go and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Yes? Okay, so now I will ask the question that you should be asking me, but since we're all muted, I would just imagine you all have this in mind. What's the difference between the rotation when your legs are in and when your legs are apart? Remember how I said, right? Because that's what gets confusing. I said when you're transferring your weight, I want your hips to be moving, right? And then when we're doing this, could you see how that enhances the movement? So look at the difference. If I go and 1, would you see how now my hip flexors and my shoulders are not far enough? Now I'm in the correct position. Now I'm gonna, as you collect your foot, you're gonna allow the body to go a little bit farther simply because the leg comes in. So the range of the motion go farther, right? You're gonna step forward. You're gonna allow the hip flexor and the shoulder go in the direction of the foot. But because the other leg is away, the hip cannot go that far. So now, as you're bringing the leg in, could you see how that will enhance the movement? So you have a certain amount of rotation when the legs are open. And then when the legs come in, the rotation becomes greater, right? So you have a rotation to start and then the body action. You have a rotation when the legs are apart and then you have a body action. Rotation and then the body action, right? And again, the body action, make sure that you understand that it's the first thing that happens, that it's not step and then the rotation has to finish, right? Or the body action has to finish. The body action, it's almost you telling yourself, your body's telling you, I am ready to go. I am ready to go. I am ready to go. Versus, I am ready. I am ready. Could you see how now I'm using the hip action to get stopped? I want you to feel your hip action. It's almost like expanding, loading the gun, expanding the body to be able to move. Expand the body to be able to move. You know what? Let me just put this a little bit higher. Does all of this kind of make sense? Right? So therefore, when we're counting, we're going to be counting N1 and 2, N1 and 2. For your rumba, for your cha-cha, instead of 1, 2, 3, cha-cha-cha, and 1, and 2, and 3, and cha-cha-cha. So your body action, which is going to be your rotation plus the up and down of your hip flexor, it's always on the end. Now look at the wrong thing to do. And could you see how now I'm 2 directions? And when you're doing and, when you're doing the rotation, could you see my shoulder has to go together with my hip? So if I maybe do this way, right? Look at the difference. Everything rotated to my right, this space got bigger. The very common mistake is when we say ribcage leading, and at some point we're going to engage in that conversation, people do this. Would you see how now you're misaligned? The leg go one way, the body goes. That's not the ribcage leading. That's you falling off balance. So when you do your hip action, your hip flexors, would you see I still have to maintain that alignment. Now, if I show to you sideways, it feels a little bit, and do not exaggerate. That side, it's almost like you're holding a laundry basket, so it's a little bit shorter, the one that you're standing on. The one that it's free expands a little bit, but it's up, it's a down and up, not forward. Could you see how now it looks like I'm falling into my step? And at some point, you're gonna end up falling. The way you're gonna see this usually, or the way you're gonna feel it for yourself, because we will see it very quickly from the outside. But you as a person doing it, the way you're gonna be able to sense that, you're always gonna end up being ahead of music. When your ribcage is in front, 9 out of 10 times, you're gonna be ahead of the music. You're gonna be pushing it, and your teacher gonna tell you to slow down. When you are here, could you see now, I am prepared, I am ready, but I'm not falling, right? So you have your body that is prepared, you're making the step. Your body that is prepared, you're making the step. Your body that is prepared, you're making the step, and your body that is prepared, right? So could you see, I'm always very vertical with a lot of rotation. Very rarely, we will do this. Could you see how that is too much? That's you falling. And trust me, I won't have to tell you this. You will immediately feel that that whole side, that whole arm is droopy. So now, if you apply what we've done, if you lift this is that position, not that one. Yeah, and there's a question. Let me see. Forward walk, really a little zigzag. Can you elaborate? What do you mean by zigzag, Sharon? Hold on, I will unmute you.
Oops.
Okay.
So are you really going a little this way and then a little this way and then a little this way when you're really
Okay, very good question. Excellent question. Let me translate this to everyone, because I could see you, but the girls can't. Okay, perfect. So let me just do this for a second. So the question is this, because I completely get it. That's how it looks, but the answer is no. So Sharon's question was, do we do a zigzag when you're walking through? It will feel like it because of the turnout, but you do not do a zigzag. So look at this. Feet up, together. When you're just transferring the weight, would you see how the body goes from left to right? Yes? So as I'm making, let's say I put my weight on my right, my body is rotated to the right. Now, the foot is turned out. I'm making a forward step with the foot turned out. So could you see, it's a forward step. Now, the body action will feel like it's a zigzag when you bring the leg in. When you bring the leg in, you're gonna have that rotation. But now from here, you're gonna make a step forward, right? When the body is open. Now, because you already made step forward, you're gonna have the feeling of zigzagging. But you're not gonna go to the left, to the right, to the left. You're gonna be going forward with the body rotation in between. Does that make sense? Yeah? Can everybody get that? That's a very good question, because it's so easy to misunderstood forward with the feet turned out versus swiveling the feet, right? So that's why on Monday we're gonna do exercises just for your feet, right? Because could you see how, if I don't worry about the rotation, your movement is just like this, right? This is the movement forward. And because I allow the body rotation, it looks like I'm sideways, but I'm still moving forward. Then when I bring my leg in, the body rotates, but I bring it forward, and then the body rotates. You know what? One of my coaches, we talked about it. Just think of it like a shish kebab. If you have a stick and you put different meats on it, The meat you can rotate around the stick, but the stick, you will have to keep on moving in one direction. Your stick is your spine. When we say go forward, your spine, the center of the body goes forward. Your ribcage and your hips are like the meat on the shish kebab. They will move, but make sure you don't take your stick in different direction. Does that make sense? Yeah? So let's do it a few more times. So rotate with me, right? And maybe put your hands to the side so you don't go too far. It's your hands that gonna, to the side, they're gonna prevent you from going here and here. Even though I want the body to rotate that much, could you see your hands to the side? And now rotate, make a step forward. Now rotate within your hips and then the step forward and rotate. So could you see your body action have nothing to do with you moving through space. You make a step back and you're gonna rotate when the leg comes in. You're gonna make a step back and through. Step back and rotate. Step forward and rotate. Step forward and rotate. Now very quickly, if you can look at my feet, when I step forward, my feet are turned out. Maybe I will make it this way. You see both of them are turned out, right? Now, I bring my foot in, and could you see how my right foot did not swivel? Now look at this, right? I will make a step. Look, that right foot won't swivel at all. Bring the foot in. A very common thing to create the zigzag feeling is this. You take one step, really good. You even sometimes are good here, although sometimes what's happening when you're bringing the foot, you end up swiveling. Do not swivel. Just bring the foot. Now look, very common mistake right now, we over swivel unnecessarily the leg you're standing on. Right? Could you see I was here, and what I did before I stepped, I swiveled that foot. And I want you to get used to make a step and just pick up the heel, but do not swivel the foot. Because there is no reason. If I'm facing you, could you see I'm only moving my body forward. There is no reason to swivel. Swiveling of your feet, we're gonna do this on Saturday, will help you to change the direction. It will help you with the rotation. When you're going forward, I just want your feet to be turned out, picking up the heels, but no extra swiveling. That's when you're gonna feel that body does weird stuff, right? So could you see how the rotation, it's caused by bending and straightening your leg, not so much by swiveling the feet. Swiveling the feet just changes your direction, right? So let's do this one more time. Put your weight on your left, rotate your body to the left, stretch your right arm. Now make a step forward, right? And that's your position. Remember how we did this with the arms. Open and inhale, right? Now bring the leg in and exhale. And as that happens, would you see the opposite arm is going to be going out to make sure we don't do this, but we have a nice space. Now go forward without swiveling your feet and inhale. So you have a nice strong position. And then when the leg comes in, nice turn out of your toes, allow the rotation to happen. And this one, the left arm comes in, the right one opens up. And we're going to make another step without swerving of your feet. Just pick it up. Bring the leg in and allow the body to rotate. Yes? How are we doing? Any feedback, any questions, or we're feeling pretty good? Yes, awesome. Like, thumbs up. Okay, good. I like this. Everybody's getting it and no one have any question to challenge my authority. This is great. Okay, so now, right, could we do this? Maybe go sideways, rotate, just the body, do not tilt, yes? Go forward, right? Now, okay, so this is what's gonna get a little bit tricky. Good thing I had this idea. When we go forward, right, you're gonna collect your leg. But when you're rocking back, so let's say like your cha-cha forward rock followed by the back step, right? Forward and back. You won't bring the foot in, you will just close your thighs. So let me show you what I mean, right? We did this, now look at this. You're gonna step forward. Normally, when we go forward, I will ask you to bring the foot in. but we're not gonna go back forward, we're gonna go back. So keep the foot back. Now, bring your knee in and allow the body to still respond. Right? I will show you from this angle. So the legs are apart, but could you see how, because I'm bringing my knee, I'm allowing my pelvis to still rotate towards that leg. And then you're gonna go back. Now from here, when you bring the knee, bend your knee, we can have that action, step forward, bend your knee, rotate to the left, step back, bend your left, rotate to the right, step forward, bend your right, rotate to the left, and back. Now, could you see how now, and just be patient with me, when I don't bend my knee, the hip goes so far. When I bend my knee, the hip goes farther. When I bring my foot in, the hip goes even more. So could you see how the hip rotation, it's very much determined by how wide apart your feet are, right? So maybe not the hip rotation. Yes, the hip rotation. The direction of the rotation is determined by the turnout, right? So look at this. If I have a turnout of my left, we know that the hip is going to be rotating to the left. The amount of rotation is determined by how close my feet are. If my feet are apart, there is only so much. When I bend my knee, right, could you see the hips get a little bit closer? There's a little bit more rotation. The closer I'm bringing my foot, the more the hip moves. And then look, even if I continue, the more, even if I pass my foot, the more the other foot is going forward, then it's going to keep on opening and going through. So could you see the rotation, the amount of rotation, it's very much in correlation what's happening with your feet, right? Extremely important to know, because some of you, and I'm not accusing you that are with me, but let's say people outside, lots of time do this. The feet are apart and they're trying to force the hip. Make sure when the the feet are apart, the hip have some rotation, but it's very much picked up and just with the turnout. The more you keep on doing this, the more the hip is going to rotate, right? So could you see it's very smooth? You bring the feet in and therefore the hips, the door will open, yeah? So now, if we do this one more time, you're going to go side, bring the foot in, the hip rotates, step forward, bend your knee, but don't bring your foot. Because you see, the hip is only going to go so far. Then go back, bend your front knee, and then you have a hip here to the right. Now we're going to take a step to the side. And if your knees are straight, it's only going to go that far. When you're going to keep on bending your knee, could you see how now the hip goes a little bit farther? Now we're going to take a step back. And when your foot is turned out, your hip will find that rotation, but could you see no much farther? When you bend your front knee, that's when you're going to be having much more hip action. And now we're going to go forward. Now you're going to bend your knee first to start the hip action. You're going to bring your foot in to enhance the hip action. And now when we're going to go to the side, you're going to have your hip flexor is going to find your foot. Does that make sense? Yeah, let's do it a few more times. Bring the leg in, the hip action enlarges. Step forward, bend your knee so your hip action starts. And because we are not bringing the feet together, that's it. You're going to go back, bend your front knee, and that's going to move the hip a little bit wider. Then you're going to move it to the side, bend it, rotate, step back, bend your knee, rotate, step forward, bend your knee, rotate, step to the side and through. And we go 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1. And could you see that could be a cha-cha? Cha, 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 and. Right? We just right now, don't think of it, it's a particular dance. Right now, we're just doing a side step. Right? So even when I'm counting, because some of you are doing slow, quick, quick, so you're holding on, you're stepping on the 3, holding the 4. right now, this is just, take it completely irrelevant from the timing that you normally do. We're just doing this as an exercise. Step, collect, forward, collect, back, collect, side, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 2, and I will go a little bit farther so you can also see my feet. 3, and 4, and 2, and 3, and 4, and could you see how every single time I rotate towards the leg that I'm standing? So could you see it's my left, my whole body rotates to the left. You step back, and because your foot is turned out to your right, because it's your right foot, your body gonna rotate slightly to the right. Then you're gonna step forward, and because your foot is turned out to the left, your body is gonna turn out to the left. And then step side, because you're turned out, your body gonna go slightly more to the right. Step forward, rotate to the left. Step back, rotate to the right. Step side, rotate to the left. Step back, rotate to the right. Step forward, rotate to the left. Right? So one of the things that I really need you to pay attention, and you might want to even after the class want to write that down. Could you see how you're going back and forward and side, but the hips are going left and right? And that's the tricky part, that because lots of time when we start moving the hips left and right, the steps loses the direction and we end up going slightly right and slightly left. The hip action has nothing to do with the direction, right? Because could you see, I'm saying step forward with you, forward, rotate the hip to the left, step side, rotate the hip to the right or left, right? So that's extremely important to understand that the direction of your spine or of your legs has nothing to do with the direction of your hips. Your hips and your ribcage takes the direction of the turnout of the leg that you are standing on, not so much where it is that you're going to be going. I hope that makes sense, because that's extremely important to keeping in mind. Otherwise, it gets very confusing. And then kind of like Sharon was saying, then we end up zigzagging unnecessarily. Does that make sense? Yeah, everybody kind of gets that. Yes, very good. Now, let's say if we do a chasse of the cha-cha, right? Could you see, try not to swivel your feet on a cha-cha-cha. Right, so if we go here, cha and cha, right? I really want you to feel your hips are moving to your right, to my left, and then to my right. So I will turn, and we can do this together. So put your weight on your right for a second, right? And we're gonna do chasse to your left, and make sure we do not do this. Swivel, swivel, swivel. No swiveling feet. The same like what we did forward and back. You're just gonna have a turn out with the hip to the left, feet together right, feet together left. Then go back, 2, 3, and now right, left, right. Forward, back, cha, cha, cha. And 2, 3, cha, 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 and 2, and 3, and cha, 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 and 2, hip, 3, hip, cha, 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 and 2, and 3, and cha, cha, cha. Okay, I can't see you when I'm turn around. So hopefully that went very smooth. Now I'm gonna turn around and let's see if we can do this together. Right, hip, go back, 2 and 3. Now cha-cha, to the right in my case, to the left, to the right, and then hip to the left, hip to the right. Cha, 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 and back, forward, and cha, 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 and 2, 3, and cha, cha, cha. Now, could you see how when I'm doing the cha-cha, chasse, very important to keeping in mind. Look at the difference. If I swivel the feet, it's like this, cha. Could you see how my hip are rotated towards this free foot? and what we just spend the time on working. Your hip has to make sure, or you have to make sure that your hip is rotated towards the leg that you are standing on. So now when you bring the leg in, could you see how it's easy? When your hips are like this, you bring the leg in, and then it's an open business, right? So when we go side, make sure if it's to the left, your hips move to the left, your whole pelvis. Then bring your foot in, and then again, even though you're gonna have a push, so it's gonna look like you're doing a little figure eight, it's still gonna go to your left, right? And then we go 2, 3. So now just think like you're moving your hips to the right. Right and right. 2 and 3. Now left. Left and left. 2, 3. Now to the right. To the right. Forward, hip, back, hip, left and left. 2, 3, and right and right. Does that make sense? Yes. For some of you, that might feel a little bit counterintuitive, because if you were working with your teacher on swiveling your feet, you might do a lot of rotation that it's unnecessary. A lot of time for the forward step as well. So that, I think, will be a great subject to address on maybe Monday together with the feet, right? That a lot of movements that we think need to be swiveling, you just have to pay attention that the foot simply need to be turned out, but not necessarily adding any swiveling. Usually that gets us way too far. Let me see if you have any questions. Does all of this kind of make sense? Yes? Any questions on that? You should actually feel very stable doing that. Let me see, someone is saying something. Okay, no. Hold on. Okay, got it. So the question is, you mentioned rib lead before. How does that work? Okay, very good. So, you know, very commonly the teachers would say rib cage leading. So I do not like to say that, because I've noticed that it creates a really, a lot of bad things that then I have to explain so many other things. Now, there is such a sensation. So let me show it to you. Because when I'm rotated here, right, let's say, which way do I should, maybe this way. So if I have my weight on my right foot and I rotate my body to my right, and I remember how I said to hold almost like a basket on the hip, so you feel grounded, you feel connected. What's happening, in order to feel, to maintain the stability and to maintain the structure of the body, the opposite side is slightly picked up. So it has a sensation like this side is leading the movement because it's in front, because it's very much showcased. But the reason why I don't like to say that, usually when we say this to people, ribcage leading, they end up falling. They end up moving the ribcage, like the ribcage is what's gonna make you fall, gonna make you make a step. If you are moving your ribcage, before anything else, you're falling out of the step. So I want the look of ribcage being in front, but when it comes to moving, I move through my legs. I create again a nice positive look of my right now, my right side, because I'm on my left. So now it looks to people like that side is leading because it's simply in front. But just think of it like driving a car. This is the front of the car, but this is the outside. Your engine is through the legs and through the pelvis. So I make my car really presentable. I point it in the right direction, but then I still have to use my legs and my center to move. If I do this, it's almost like being U-hauled. I put a big hook in front of to the hood of my car or my bumper, and I keep on pulling my body through. Yes, so that's something I find that it's a very inefficient statement. We want to have a positive look. So when you're stepping, that side is really nice and picked up, but not necessarily this is the part of the body that creates that movement. Yes. A quick side note, Some people teach that a little bit in a swing, right? That we go fall and then you pick it up the movement. I'm personally not a big fan of that either, because I find when we allow that to happen, we usually end up running ahead of the music. And then it's not just going, but when I fall, usually I'm falling down. So now the movement, I call this, it's a little constipated and stuck versus moving through space. So I'm one of these people that I want you to have control. So even in a swing, I would create a look and then I will move it through the leg. I will create the look and then I would move it through the legs, that aligned body, versus having the body telling my legs where to go. Maybe for a particular look, maybe for a particular step from time to time, but overall, if I keep on doing this, I just found that, you know, a very common symptom is that we just keep on losing the posture, keep on losing the firmness of the body, and even worse, we end up being way ahead of the music. I hope that that answered, wait, what am I doing? I hope that that answered the question. I know, in a big way, yeah? Anybody else? Does that kind of what I just said, does that kind of make sense? Right? Could you see how it's all, and that's back to, remember how I think on Saturday or maybe last Wednesday, I think Kathy asked what it is that we're looking for when we're judging, right? Or what it is, forget judging, but like, you know, when you are looking at someone performing, one of the extremely important things is the look of being in control. It's the look of being stable. It's the look of you are in charge. Yes, all the other things are nice, you know, all the, I call this the artsy-fartsy part, all the elegant, all the exquisite little arms, you know, all the glitzy stuff that, especially for us women, we love to engage in those things. And I am very, you know, happy to share that with you. But if you're not stable, if you do not look like you are in control of what's happening with the core, within the body, all the other things do not matter. Just think of it, you could have a fabulous looking car. If there is no engine and you're not going places, it's useless, right? So first, and I know that for us women, because we are so much into the feeling and the look of it, sometimes we get sidetracked with trying to accessorize something without the dress. We don't have a dress, but we just want to accessorize it. You cannot get, you know, what's the American saying? You cannot, don't get the horse in front of the carriage, or no, don't get the carriage in front of the horse, right? Something, you cannot accessorize something you do not have. And as much as in the beginning, it might feel a little bit square and a little bit less artistic, I promise you, you just have to trust me on that one. Once you have that athletic strength, all the other things are easy to do. All the other things are gonna make your dancing so much nicer and more fun and elaborate. But if you don't have that strength and if you don't have that stability, all those elaborate things will keep on disturbing you, will keep on making you fall off balance. And we've all experienced this. When you're falling off balance, you feel terrible, right? We're almost feeling embarrassed. Like I remember, you know, when I started, when I did not know, I was falling off balance as well. And as much as I want to look like I was the diva, like I'm the best, when you are falling left and right, it's hard to feel that way, right? You're almost embarrassed. You quickly want to get the dance over with because you're just hoping that, you know, maybe no one saw this. It's almost like tripping on the street and you're just hoping that you can quickly recover because you don't want people to see that mistake, right? So you just, the more stable you can be, and the stability comes from having your pelvis and your rib cage always aligned. When you're off, I don't have to tell you. Could you see if I stand like this and I talk to you and I ask you, do you think I am stable? You don't have to be an expert to tell me, you look like something bad is happening to you. Versus if I go here, you go, wow, that looks much more normal. So, you know, all of you actually worked with me before. Very common thing that I always say to my clients, normal is very good. Be normal, feel like you are in charge, feel like you're connected, feel like you are strong. And then all the other things, it's easy to manage. That takes little time. It's your stability. Why do you often have your arms in? Because you're feeling like you're falling. When you're picked up, picking up the arm, it's easy. But when I'm falling off balance, picking up the arm contribute to that fall. So a lot of funny positions that we go through are not because we do not know what to do. It's that your body will prevent itself from falling and will end up doing, or it will prevent you, let's say, from opening the arms, simply to prevent you from falling, simply to prevent you from harming yourself. Like, we are designed not to fall. So anytime you're putting yourself in a position that our control guy goes, oh my God, there is a danger, even though me or your teacher would say, open the arm and stretch and commit. If you're falling off balance, your body will cut off that reasoning and will do whatever it needs to do to prevent you from falling. That's why we oftentimes dance with hands like this, because the body collects anything in. And even though you're in your mind, you might not be scared, you will look like you're scared because inside there is that feeling, there is that natural instinct of, we have to prevent the body from falling, forget looking good. Does all of this kind of make sense? Yeah. Any questions about your pelvis and or your ribcage in relationship to your pelvis? All of you, actually, I'm going to unmute all of you. So now we can actually talk a little bit. I do not know how I unmute everyone. Unmute, like just unmute yourself. Okay, perfect. I know this is crazy. I mean, as much as we all like to talk, I like when you guys are talking back. It's, you know, it's such an interesting curve, right? With this whole having the videos, having the classes online, when we cannot touch you, we can't help you. You actually, so the beauty of it, you actually, I hate to use the word struggle, but to some degree, you have to struggle a little bit on your own to figure out things, right? Because lots of time we would have helped you already, right? No, do this and adjust that. So it might be a little bit more painful or taking a little bit more time, but I believe that it's actually much more beneficial because you're depending on your own doing it versus depending on your teacher or the coach doing it stuff for you, right? So as much as this might not be the ideal, this might be actually one of the best things that we actually are being forced to get better on our own and use your own devices. You know how oftentimes I say to my clients, when you're in a group class, assume your neighbor is wrong, right? Don't look at what they do, because by the time you see them, it's too late. And the chances are they are as wrong or as knowledgeable as you are. If I'm introducing a new concept, why would you think that they already got it, right? So you're paying attention to them versus to yourself. And I want you to start developing your own awareness of the body, because that's how you can actually improve so much faster. Like today, actually, so I will just give you a quick, we were talking with a friend of mine on these interviews of how this time that we are by ourselves, right, in the home, forces us to think and to be much more in touch with ourselves. It forces us to deal with our own feelings. You know, like the other day I woke up, even yesterday, I woke up and I was in pain. Like I slept funny. I had so many thoughts in my head that I think I was just like too intense. I woke up and I have such a crank in my neck, right? And then I'm supposed to go do the funny bee thing. I'm like, oh my God, I just don't feel like going, right? I was just like such a poo head, right? But I'm thinking, okay, snap out of it, get your coffee, get this, get that. So I go to my friend's house, right? And I'm like, Chris, I just, you know, no, because normally I'm like this bubbly person, right? So normally everybody is so used to me showing up and I'm like, okay, let's conquer the world. And yesterday I was like, man, this is tough. He goes, I cannot believe I'm feeling pretty shitty myself. This is terrible. I'm so irritated. So we were like two mean bees in the beginning. But, you know, so we were lucky that we could talk to one another. But in the beginning, I had to deal with my own, like, why am I feeling this? What's happening? And then you have to kind of go, okay, I'm just a little bit tired. I'm overthinking. Like, you have to process it yourself. You have to become much more aware of what's happening. So then you can overcome it. Or you can go, you know, it's okay. It's okay for me to feel that way. The same within the dancing. You know, right now, there is no teacher that can help you. I can't be there in person to say, no, pick up the arm and let me guide you through it. You have to kind of struggle on your own and you will get frustrated. I mean, we all do. right? It's like, man, I'm working on this arm and it's pulling down. I'm thinking of pointing the foot and it's pointed in. You will have those pissy moments, right? And sometimes I will tell you, just suck it up and, you know, fix it. And sometimes I will tell you, you know what? It's okay. At some point, you just have to say, you know what? It's okay to make mistakes. I will get through this because, so what I've learned over the time, being from Eastern Europe, it's very much, it's a mind over matter, right? You don't allow the body to tell you or the circumstance to guide your life. You are in control and whatever, you have to control your mind. But then listening, like one of my favorite theories was, or teaching was Bruce Lee teachings. Just go with the flow. Just be more aware versus always like so zoomed in. Because when you are only keeping an eye on the target, you miss all the other stuff. Versus when you become aware and inclusive, life is a little bit easier. So you're still moving towards your target, but you are taking advantage of the things that are happening, right? So looking for the positive things. Like, okay, I might not be able to do this, but I can pick up the arm. I might not pick up the arm, but I'm turning out my feet. So sometimes you just have to pat your own self because we cannot do it for you. Normally, we're the one who's trying to figure out when to push you, when to pat you. Right now, you have to be your coach and you have to be your best friend. Occasionally pat it on the shoulder, just chill, and it's not a big deal. And occasionally go, okay, just suck it up and push, right? And you will have to find your own guidance within that. So it's, you know, it's, I feel like it's a fun journey that we all have to engage in. There is no escaping this craziness these days, you know? Okay, any thoughts? Because I'm the one who is talking, and at some point I would like someone to say something to me. And Chris is even muted. What's happening? I keep on unmuting you, and you just mute yourself.
I was walking around and I didn't want to.
Oh, I see.
I'm good now.
Okay.
Kasha, I think you're right. You know, when you're saying we almost have to figure it out for ourselves. And sometimes that's good because even like, okay, I need to put my arm like that. And sometimes the coach and the instructor will come and literally put me into that form. But that doesn't allow me to necessarily learn which muscle I have to activate to get there. So that's definitely something that I feel is a benefit right now in a way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, that's the thing, like when we're coaching, you know how sometimes we have like a married couple or involved couple that is dancing, right? And they might be dancing with their professional partner as well, right? With the teacher. And they always, of course, everybody feels like, oh my God, it's so much better and easier to dance with a pro. I mean, I remember I used to love to dance with my coaches versus my partner, right? I'm like, oh my God, dancing with them was always fabulous. And then you dance with your partner and go, man. And of course, you learn very quickly not to say this, but in the beginning, you want to say, you don't feel like so-and-so, right? And you know that that's a quick death to any partnership or relationship, right? So you learn not to say that, but inside you still have that feeling, right? The feeling does not go away just because you don't say it. And so our clients experience the same thing, that it's easier to dance with the teacher than with themselves. And I always tell them, yes, it is easier because we are dancing for you. We are lifting the arm for you. And I mean, that's what, and we're there for that, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? It's almost like you're being driven in your car versus you driving yourself. But you learn so much faster when you are the one driving. You learn so much faster when you're experiencing the pain, when you're dancing with another person who is at your level and you go, oh, wow, this is not working. And you can't blame them because they're in the same shoes as you are. They might be beginners themselves. So now you go, I have to get stronger. I have to solve the issue versus depending on your teacher or depending on someone who's more experienced. So this is a much higher learning curve, right? And I believe we're all going to probably get so much more out of it because you have to figure out your way. That's why I would recommend when you're practicing, like just put your camera on if you have a tripod or put it against something and just see when you started the movement, it looks this way. When you're finishing, do it 5-10 times. You don't have to make it, oh my God, it's going to be 45-minute session. And then go, can I see the difference? And if you can't, right, and you thought of it, then maybe you have to do a little bit more. Maybe you have to go a little bit higher because sometimes you pick up the arm a little bit and you go, okay, I see the difference a little bit, but can you make it bigger? Because, you know, all of you perform, all of you compete. So when you think about it, at the competition, everything has to be supersized for us to see it. Otherwise, it's very difficult because you are far away from us. So if your movement is very little, the chances are I won't be able to see it. So you have to exaggerate that movement for us to be able to go, oh, this is what's happening. I could clearly see it, right? So yeah, I hope that that's, that we will all enjoy the process somehow and get the best out of it. At least I'm trying to. Let me tell you, I'm so fortunate that I have my family, but it's so easy to get caught up in your own head, right? That I have to be doing this and I have to, and how come, and you're thinking of the future and you're trying to plan without even knowing what's going to happen. I'm like, why am I worrying about stuff that I have no control over? Just one day at a time, do the things you have control over it, and then try to enjoy the process or try to enjoy having the time off, right? Because once we are up and running, it's going to go back to the rat race, right? That we are now being saved from. So it's kind of a interesting thing.
Kasha,
Right.
I think we're really lucky to have you doing this.
Yes.
I think we don't want to let go of it. We don't want to tread water or even forget what we've worked on. And this, the amount of information you're able to convey to us in a way that we can understand in this setting, in these lessons is pretty remarkable. So thanks for doing it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being so kind to me. It's my pleasure. I think it was so interesting because even for me, like I have to be so much more articulated because I can't be there to help you. Right. And then even for you to ask questions, right, you have to be a little bit more specific. So it's actually nice because it helps you to be more in touch with what's happening and how you can say it. So then when you're going back and you're talking to your teachers, it should be easier because now, right, we can communicate more through the words versus just, that thing that we do, that little step. But so one little comment that I actually would like to add before I let you go, make sure you also practice your routines. Right? Because with me, like we are addressing the movements, the elements, right? But do not, like you don't have to, and I know that it's complicated. I get it. Lots of time we don't have space. I get it that lots of time, or oftentimes we even forget the routine, right? Or we like, oh my God, I remember 5 steps and then what happened after? Make sure you do, right? Because you're going to have a lot of knowledge, but if you don't have steps to practice that in, it's going to go nowhere. And then you're going to be really frustrated with, oh my God, you go back to the studio and you are completely not prepared to practice, right? So have, maybe some time to set for the technique, for the things that we do. And then make sure that you set enough time to go, not even very advancedly, but just go through the routine. So you remember, I'm turning right, I'm turning left. What's my timing, right? So maybe, on one of the session, I can give you like a breakdown of how to practice. So you're very efficient, right? Of how to kind of structure your practice. So you're gaining the information from me or whoever you're taking lessons or whoever seminars you're looking at, because there's so much information right now out there. But also keeping up what you've done before, because otherwise you will be frustrated and your teacher is going to be frustrated, right? Or it's going to feel like, oh my God, we have lost all of this. So practicing your routines, that's a big thing, and practicing them to music. Yeah.
Right.
All right, my darlings. I will see you hopefully on Saturday. I will send you your video, and if you have any ideas for the following week, what you would like me to address. So we're going to be doing turns on Saturday. Then we're going to do feet and the leg work on Monday, and then any suggestions for Wednesday and Saturday. Lots of time we just, as we're going, we always come up with something. But if you have any suggestions or any particular things, just let me know. Yeah, and please check my YouTube channel. I will post my first conversation on, Friday probably.
You'll send us the links, right?
I will send you the link, of course. You guys are like my family now. I love it. This is my extended family. I'm like, I feel more alive because now I actually have to do something versus I get buried in my paperwork.